The olive groves, once a symbol of home, now blurred through a haze of dust and terror. Leandros, a name soon to be swallowed by the brutal indifference of his captors, remembers the sun on his face, the laughter of his sister, the scent of his mother's bread. Then, the screams. The clash of bronze, the world he knew, vibrant and familiar, was shattered in a heartbeat. One moment, he was a man with a life, a family, a future. The next, he was a nameless thing, herded with others like cattle, the taste of blood and fear heavy on his tongue. They stripped him of everything, his clothes, his dignity, his very identity. The rough hands that hauled him aboard the ship paid no heed to his pleas, his protests, his very being. He became a number, a commodity, a unit of labor to be exploited until his body failed. The voyage was a torment of hunger, thirst, and the ceaseless fear of the lash. The rhythmic slap of waves against the hull became a morbid metronome, marking the steady erosion of his hope. His name, Leandros, a word whispered once with love and pride, became a ghost, a memory fading into the abyss of his new reality. He was no longer a son, a brother, a man. He was property. A tool, a thing. And as the ship limped into the Athenian harbor, the sun, once a source of warmth and life, felt only like a cruel reminder of the light he had lost. His story, a testament to the cold heart of slavery, is a story of countless others, lost in the shadows of a seemingly glorious civilization. His journey, a descent into the depths of despair, is a prelude to a struggle for survival, a fight for the embers of his humanity, a silent battle against the crushing weight of injustice. A battle he would wage until his dying breath, and even then his story, like the stories of countless others, would remain untold, a silent scream against the tyranny of man. The air hung thick with the stench of sweat, dust, and despair. Lorien's silver mines were a maw of darkness, a subterranean hell where the sun was a forgotten myth. Leandros, his body already bearing the scars of his capture, found himself plunged into a new abyss, an unrelenting cycle of backbreaking labor under the whip of overseers whose cruelty knew no bounds. Each swing of his pickaxe was an act of defiance against the crushing weight of exhaustion, each drop of sweat a testament to his suffering. The rations were meager, a handful of barley, a sliver of stale bread, water thick with sediment. Hunger gnawed at his insides, a constant companion to the bone-deep weariness that settled in his limbs. The darkness was absolute, broken only by the flickering light of oil lamps that did little to pierce the gloom. The air was thick with dust, choking his lungs, coating his skin, seeping into every pore. Every breath was a struggle, every movement an agony. The threat of death was ever present, collapsing tunnels, cave-ins, the ever-present risk of injury. Men died here, their bodies buried beneath tons of earth, their screams swallowed by the unforgiving rock. There was no escape, no respite, only the relentless cycle of toil punctuated by the screams of the injured and the silent whispers of the dying. The mines were a world of shadows, a realm of despair, where hope withered and died, leaving only a raw, primal will to survive. Here, in this subterranean tomb, Leandros felt the full weight of his enslavement, the crushing burden of a life stolen, a future extinguished. Yet, even in the deepest darkness, a flickering ember of defiance remained, stubbornly refusing to be snuffed out by the cold hand of despair. The whip cracked, a sharp, brutal sound that echoed the systematic violence woven into the fabric of Leandros' existence. It was a constant threat, a shadow that loomed over every moment, a reminder of his utter powerlessness. Beatings were commonplace, meted out for the slightest infraction, real or imagined. Hunger gnawed at his belly, a constant companion to the pain in his aching muscles. Starvation wasn't a punishment, it was a policy. A deliberate strategy to keep the enslaved men weak, docile, and easily controlled. Beyond the physical brutality, there was the slow, insidious erosion of his spirit, the systematic dehumanization that stripped him of his dignity, his self-worth, his very essence as a man. He was reduced to a tool, his body a mere instrument of labor, his mind a blank slate upon which the will of his masters was inscribed. The constant threat of sexual exploitation hung heavy in the air, a chilling reminder of the absolute power wielded by those who owned him. His body, once a source of pride, now felt like a cage, a vessel of suffering, vulnerable to the whims of his captors. This wasn't merely individual cruelty, it was a systemic evil, a carefully constructed apparatus designed to break the human spirit, to obliterate individuality, to transform men into compliant, obedient beasts of burden. The laws of Athens, ostensibly founded on principles of freedom and democracy, offered no protection to those who were not citizens. Leandros's body was deemed responsible for any misdeed, his testimony worthless. His suffering was invisible to the eyes of those who enjoyed the fruits of his labor, who walked freely in the sunlight while he toiled in darkness. The cruel irony was a constant, biting reminder of the chasm between the rhetoric of freedom and the reality of brutal enslavement. The weight of this injustice pressed down on him, a crushing burden he carried every day, a heavy price paid for the mere privilege of breathing. The Athenian agora pulsed with the rhythm of democracy, the clatter of debate, the murmur of crowds, the clang of the water clocks marking the votes. Citizens, draped in togas, debated rights and freedoms, their voices echoing with the self-assured pronouncements of a society built on ideals of liberty and justice. But this veneer of noble rhetoric masked a brutal reality. For every citizen basking in the glow of Athenian democracy, countless others toiled in the shadows, their bodies broken, their spirits crushed under the weight of enslavement. The very stones of the Acropolis, those magnificent monuments to Athenian glory, were built on the backs of enslaved men. The vibrant tapestry of Athenian life, the bustling marketplaces, the thriving arts, the intellectual ferment, all were fueled by the unpaid labor of millions. The economic engine of Athens was powered by the exploitation of human beings, a stark contradiction to the ideals of freedom and equality so proudly proclaimed by its citizens. Leandros, witnessing this hypocrisy firsthand, felt a bitter irony twist in his gut. He saw the citizens proudly exercising their rights, their voices ringing with self-righteous conviction, utterly oblivious to the suffering of those who made their privileged lives possible. The chasm between the lofty ideals of Athenian democracy and the brutal reality of its dependence on slavery was a gaping wound in the heart of the city, a testament to the moral bankruptcy of a system that valued liberty for some while denying it to others. This stark contrast fueled his simmering resentment, igniting a spark of rebellion that would eventually lead him to a desperate gamble for freedom. A freedom, however, that would prove far more elusive than he ever imagined. Silence became Leandros's constant companion, a heavy shroud that muffled his cries, his pleas, his very essence. It was the silence of despair, the silence of powerlessness, the silence imposed by fear. He learned to bury his emotions deep within, to mask his pain behind a stoic facade, a carefully constructed wall to protect himself from the crushing weight of his suffering. Hope, once a vibrant flame, dwindled to a faint ember, flickering precariously in the darkness. Every day was a battle against the crushing weight of hopelessness, a relentless struggle against the insidious erosion of his spirit. The constant threat of punishment, the ever-present fear of the whip, silenced his voice, stifling any attempt at rebellion, any expression of his inner turmoil. He carried his pain silently, a burden too heavy to share, a secret too dangerous to reveal. The silence wasn't just an absence of sound, it was a suffocating presence, a palpable weight that pressed down on him, crushing his spirit, stealing his voice. It was the silence of a broken man, a man stripped of his identity, his dignity, his humanity. His memories, once vibrant and full of life, faded into a hazy blur, replaced by the stark reality of his present existence. The silence was a testament to the brutal efficiency of the system that had reduced him to a mere shadow of his former self, a silent testament to the dehumanizing power of slavery. This oppressive silence, however, would eventually give way to a desperate, silent scream for freedom. A freedom that, even when achieved, would leave behind an echoing silence in his soul. The chaos of the Decelean War offered Leandros his chance, a sliver of hope, a crack in the seemingly impenetrable wall of his enslavement. He seized it, fueled by desperation, by the gnawing hunger for freedom that had sustained him through years of brutal oppression. It was a reckless gamble, a desperate flight into the unknown, fraught with peril. Every shadow held a potential threat, every sound sent shivers down his spine. He ran, his heart pounding in his chest, his breath ragged, his body aching with the accumulated toll of years of backbreaking labor. He slipped through the gaps in the city's defenses, a ghost in the night, moving with the silent urgency of a hunted animal. The fear was palpable, a cold dread that clung to him like a shroud, a constant reminder of the precariousness of his situation. He dared not look back, dared not hesitate, for the price of capture was too high to contemplate. He was a fugitive, a shadow, a man without a name, a man without a past, a man fighting for a future that seemed impossibly distant. His escape was a brutal odyssey, a journey marked by exhaustion, hunger, and the constant threat of discovery. But with each step, with each breath of freedom he stole, a profound sense of relief began to bloom in his heart, a fragile flower pushing through the hardened ground of his trauma. Yet, even in freedom, the scars of his past remained. The haunting memories, the physical wounds, the psychic scars, these were the silent companions of his new life, reminders of the horrors he had endured. His freedom was a bittersweet victory, a hard-won prize tainted by the bitter taste of loss and the lingering shadow of his past. He was free, but he was broken. He was alive, but a part of him remained forever lost in the darkness of the Athenian mines. Freedom, for Leandros, was not a restoration, but a beginning of a different kind of struggle. The scars of his past, both visible and invisible, remained. The physical wounds might heal, but the psychological trauma lingered, a constant companion that shadowed his every step. He carried the weight of his experiences, the silent screams of his past echoing in the quiet moments. Reintegrating into society proved a Herculean task. He was a stranger in a strange land, marked by the indelible brand of his former life. The world saw only a former slave, not a man deserving of respect and dignity. His struggle was not unique. The echoes of his experience resonate through history, finding a chilling parallel in the modern world. The insidious forms of exploitation, indentured servitude, forced migration, the denial of legal personhood, continue to enslave millions, mirroring the cruel injustices Leandros faced. The fight for fair wages, for basic human rights, for recognition as individuals worthy of respect and dignity, echoes the silent rebellion that burned within Leandros. His story, though set in ancient Greece, is a timeless testament to the enduring struggle for freedom and justice, a reminder that the fight against oppression is a constant battle, one that must be fought anew in each generation. The scars of the past are a stark reminder of the fragility of freedom and the ever-present need to safeguard the rights of all. Leandros' story, though rooted in the distant past, echoes with chilling relevance in our modern world. The brutal realities of ancient Greek slavery find their counterparts in the insidious forms of exploitation that persist today. Indentured servitude, human trafficking, forced migration, these are the modern masks of ancient evils, perpetuating cycles of oppression and suffering. The denial of basic human rights, the commodification of human beings, the systematic dehumanization, these are not relics of a bygone era, but persistent threats that demand our unwavering attention. The parallels are stark and unsettling. Just as Athenian democracy thrived on the backs of enslaved men, so too do many modern systems benefit from exploitative labor practices. The hypocrisy remains. Professions of freedom and equality coexist with the brutal realities of injustice and inequality. Understanding the past is not merely an academic exercise, it is a crucial step towards dismantling the structures that perpetuate modern-day slavery. Leandros' silent struggle, his quiet desperation, should serve as a constant reminder of the human cost of indifference. Let his story be a catalyst for empathy, a call to action. We must confront the uncomfortable truths of our own time, challenge the systems that perpetuate injustice, and work tirelessly to ensure that the echoes of Leandros's suffering do not resonate in the future. The fight for freedom is an ongoing battle, and the legacy of those who have endured the horrors of slavery demands that we continue the fight, ensuring that their sacrifices are not in vain. Their silent screams must become our rallying cry for a more just and equitable world.